Today we're working on hand balances and some inversion practice, and hand and arm balances can be really challenging, but there's lots of different ways to modify for everyone's body. So I'll show you a couple of them here. So we'll start seated for our boat pose, which is in the Sanskrit called Navasana. And there's a few different variations. So sitting on your sits bones, feet flat to the ground with the knees bent, hold underneath the knees and lift the feet and find your balance. Now, this may be a really good place for you to stay. You can practice lifting one leg, maybe the other leg, just finding the balance here. If you feel like you can let go, reach the arms up. And if you feel like you can lengthen the legs without curving the spine, you can do so. The idea here is to balance here for 5 full breaths, after which cross at your feet and sit back down. And I'm going to turn and face front for the second part of this, which is a hand balance called Take It Up. And I'm using blocks to demonstrate, but you can do this on the floor. It all just kind of depends on your comfort level. Hands are right by the hips. Push into the hands flat and lift the hips up off the ground. So you're using your hands to hold the body's weight. And if you wish to, you can actually lift the feet off the ground and find a full hand balance. All of those things are optional though. You can also just use your hands against the floor to lift your chest, as I'm demonstrating here. And then here's a view from the side so that you can see what it looks like. Lifting the heart. So in that instance, I just had the fingertips down, and this is with the palms flat, no blocks. So any variation is really appropriate. You don't have to do the full hard variation, though you can try it if you want to. Here's one with the legs straight. That's more comfortable to you. And the idea is that you will alternate. So then you would go back to boat pose and hold that for 5 breaths, any variation. Cross the ankle and push the hips up to the sky and hold for your hand balance. Any of these variations are appropriate. It's important to kind of monitor what your body needs. Next up is crow pose, and I'm adjusting the space slightly so that I have room to do it, though you can use blocks for this. I'm going to keep one handy. You want to start out in a little squat, and the heels can be up here and the hands are at prayer. And if you can get them there, put the arms on the inside of the knee. You can stay here and work on that, or you can shift the hands forward and try to get the knees on top of the triceps. You may want to experiment with rocking forward and back here, shifting the weight, getting the feel for what this is like. Notice your head is pretty close to the ground. This is called little dancing crow. You can kind of do one foot and then the other. And then if you feel like you want to try it, lift your chest and pick your feet up. In order to make this work, you have to really bend the elbows and you have to really lift the chest, pulling the belly in tight. This is very challenging, not for everybody. When you're done, just sit on down. This is a block variation. Sometimes this creates a little bit of space if you have something to stand on, if you can find your balance. Rise to your toes. Again, knees are on the top of the triceps, the back side of the arm, but the elbows have to be super duper bent here to make this work. So you can rock forward and back or try lifting your toes up and finding that challenge position. The last of our hand balance series for today is side plank. So 3 variations. The first is probably the most accessible. Start in tabletop position and move your hand and your knee in a line. Go to the outside edge of the back leg. Hand can go to hip and then reach to the sky. So you see here you're balancing on your hand and your knee, but in order to make this work, you really have to press your hips forward and make sure your knee and your hand are in a straight line. If your hips are too far back, this will be a lot of pressure on the knee. If you feel like you can balance, take your gaze up. Second variation, more challenging. From plank, turn to the inside and outside edge of the feet, roll to the side, reach the arm up. You'll notice that your hips have to stay pretty high here or else it's a lot of pressure on that arm and on that shoulder. And again, if you have your balance, look up. Third variation is the most challenging. Feet are stacked in your side. You can see I almost lost my balance there. And again, if you can, reach the arm up and look up. You can always keep the hand to the hip also. Any variation of this is acceptable. When you're finished, go ahead and find child's pose. Perhaps the most accessible and restful of all the inversion practices is legs up a wall. Anyone can do this if you have a wall. So you want to kind of scoot your bottom as close as you can and then roll to your side, letting the legs go long, fold your hands on your abdomen and close your eyes. And you can just set an alarm here for 5 minutes. It's quite nice. Good for the circulation of your legs. When you come out, roll to the side. It's the easiest way. Next up, we have a handstand preparation. So this may not be for everybody, but if you'd like to experiment with this, it can be a lot of fun. So I'm showing you from 2 angles. So this is the first one. You're going to measure out. So put something where your feet are while you're sitting straight up against a wall. And then here's the side angle, so you can see in a moment. You want to have your hands in line with whatever that item is, and that will feel much closer than you think it should be. So here's the side angle. Measure it out. It's in line with the heels. And you'll see the distance doesn't feel like it's far enough, but it is. Trust me on this. So put your hands in line with whatever that item was. Find down dog. Step your foot against the wall and push. And you can see here this 90-degree angle. Ideally, we're trying to get the sits bones directly over the shoulders. And we're just kind of learning how to keep the weight right on top of our hands. So this can be a little bit risky, especially if you've not done it before. So go slow, take your time. Again, this is optional. It can be challenging. Here's what tends to happen if you don't push enough is you get up there and then your legs just kind of slide and hit. Shake the camera. Don't do that. Really push, and if you feel like you have your balance, you can experiment with even lifting a leg. Child's pose on the other end, of course. So if that felt okay and you want to experiment with a little bit more prep, you can do just kind of like a single leg downward facing dog hop. And sorry about the camera shaking, but you're kind of just lifting one leg and keeping the other one low and doing little hops, up, down, up, down, up, down. Again, child's pose on the other end. Forearms for the next one. So the head needs to stay off of the ground, but you're going to find a shoulder width wide forearm stance. Tuck your toes under and press the hips up. So it's almost like downward facing dog, except that you're on your forearms, which makes it a bit more challenging. And then you can kind of walk your toes in and lift one leg maybe lift the other leg. See how that feels? Or you can just stay there and get accustomed to the position. This is all preparation for a forearm stand. If you want to try a little hop, you can. Same idea. Up and down. One leg up, the other one down. If you throw both legs up, you're just going to jump over yourself and flip over, and that's not going to be fun, especially in your house. Child's pose on the other end. Finally, for those of you that are interested, headstand preparation. So what I'm showing here is that you're not actually on your head, you're actually on your forearms, and kind of tiptoe your feet in and lift your feet. Now this is not for everybody. You can see that my pelvis is right on top of my head. That takes a little bit of time and work to get there, but no hopping into that position. Your neck's not really strong enough to take that sort of impact. So that's really optional for those of you that want it. You can see I'm counter stretching on the other side just to open up the shoulder.